The security monitor flickered with static before showing a dark corridor. Captain Rena leaned closer to the screen, her purple hands gripping the edge of the console. Something moved in the shadows. Something wrong. The timestamp showed 40 minutes ago. 3 crew members had entered that corridor. Only one came out running. Rena watched the footage again. The thing appeared from nowhere. One moment the corridor was empty. The next moment death itself slithered along the ceiling. 6 meters of pure black muscle, scales reflecting the dim lights like oil on water, yellow eyes burning in the darkness. The Shade Stalker moved with horrible grace, each motion fluid and precise. Its claws clicked against metal as it dropped behind the Calori engineer. The screen went dark after that. She had seen Shade Stalkers before. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. Stories passed between traders in quiet voices. Entire ships found drifting with empty corridors. Stations abandoned without warning. 47 species marked as extinct in the galactic records, all sharing one thing in common. Shade Stalkers had found them. "Captain, we have a problem." Polo's voice cracked through the intercom. The Minthari science officer sounded terrified. "The creature is in the cargo bay, near the cooling systems." "Evacuate that section," Rena ordered. "Seal all bulkheads." "Already done. But Captain, the human engineer is still down there. He was working on the coolant repair." Rena felt her antennae droop with stress. The human. She had almost forgotten about David Reed. He had joined the crew 2 months ago as a contractor. Quiet man, kept to himself, did good work. Now he was trapped in a cargo bay with the most dangerous predator in the known galaxy. "Try to contact him," Rena said. "Tell him to hide and stay silent." David heard the alarms from deep inside the cooling system's access tunnel. He pulled himself out slowly, tools clanking against his belt. The cargo bay stretched before him, filled with containers stacked 3 levels high. Emergency lights painted everything red. Something was wrong. His datapad beeped. A message from the bridge flashed across the screen. "Creature in cargo bay. Stay hidden. Do not make noise. Do not run." David read it twice. Creature. What kind of creature? He grabbed the heavy wrench from his belt and moved behind a large container. His boots made soft sounds on the metal grating. Years of survival training kicked in automatically. Assess the situation. Find cover. Stay calm. The mist was thicker than usual. Coolant leak somewhere. David could see his breath in the cold air. He pressed his back against the container and listened. The normal hum of the ship's systems. The distant rumble of engines. Nothing else. Then he heard it. A sound like claws on metal. Click, click, click. Rhythmic and deliberate, something moving through the cargo bay with purpose. David risked a glance around the container's edge. His blood went cold. The creature hung from the ceiling like a massive serpent. Black scales caught the light and threw back rainbow colors. Its body was too long, too flexible. Joints bent in ways that made his eyes hurt to watch. The head swiveled slowly, yellow eyes scanning the cargo bay, looking for prey. A Calori crew member ran between containers. Young one, panicked. The Shade Stalker moved so fast David barely saw it, one moment hanging from the ceiling. The next moment wrapped around the screaming alien. Claws flashed. The screaming stopped. David's grip tightened on the wrench. Every instinct told him to run, but running from a predator was suicide. He had hunted wild boar in the Australian outback with his father. He knew how predators thought. Movement triggered the chase response. He stayed absolutely still. The Shade Stalker dropped the body and lifted its head. Those yellow eyes swept the cargo bay again. David watched as the creature slithered between containers, moving closer to his position. Its scales made whispering sounds against metal. It was searching, hunting. David held his breath. The creature was less than 5 meters away now. He could see every detail. The way its scales overlapped like armor. The crystalline claws that could cut through hull plating. The too many joints in its limbs that allowed impossible movement. This was death given physical form. The Shade Stalker paused, its head tilted, those yellow eyes locked directly on David's position. David stepped out from behind the container, no point hiding now. The creature had found him. He raised the wrench slightly, not threatening but ready. His heart hammered, but he kept his breathing steady. The predator could probably smell fear. He would not show it. The two stared at each other across the cargo bay, man and monster. The Shade Stalker's scales flared slightly, reading for attack. Its claws extended. Every muscle in that serpentine body coiled for the strike. David did not look away. He had learned from hunting that prey looked away. Predators held eye contact. He was not prey. He was a human. His ancestors had walked with lions and hunted alongside wolves. He came from Earth, where everything wanted to kill you and humans survived anyway. The Shade Stalker made a sound, low frequency, almost below David's hearing range. Its head tilted further to the side. The aggressive posture faded slightly. The creature's eyes narrowed as if confused. Then it turned and flowed into the ventilation shaft. The metal grating bent under its weight as it disappeared into the darkness, gone as quickly as it had appeared. David stood alone in the cargo bay, wrench still raised, trying to understand what just happened. The creature had him, perfect kill position, and it just left. His datapad buzzed. Captain Rena's face appeared on the screen. Her purple features were tight with fear. "Mr. Reed, are you alive?" "Yes, Captain," David said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. "I'm alive." How? The Shade Stalker was right there. We saw it on the cameras. "I don't know," David admitted. "It looked at me and left." Silence on the other end. Then Rena spoke again, her voice desperate. "Mr. Reed, I need your help. That creature has killed 3 of my crew. Our distress signal won't reach the nearest station for 6 days. We have no weapons that can stop a Shade Stalker, but for some reason it did not kill you. Please, help us survive until rescue arrives." David looked at the ventilation shaft where the creature had disappeared. He thought about the way it had paused, the way it had studied him, the way it had chosen not to kill. "I'll help," he said, "but I need access to all your data on Shade Stalkers, everything you have." "You'll have it in 2 minutes," Rena promised. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. You may be the only chance we have." David walked toward the cargo bay exit, stepping carefully around the body on the floor. Somewhere above him in the ventilation system, a monster waited. A monster that had looked at him and seen something other than prey. He needed to figure out why before it changed its mind. The science lab was cramped and cold. David sat across from Polo, the Menthari science officer, watching data scroll across multiple screens. Numbers and graphs and biological readings that meant nothing to him. Polo's large blue head tilted as he studied the information with intense focus. "This makes no sense," Polo muttered. His 3-fingered hands moved across the holographic controls. Shade Stalkers operate on pure instinct. They mark their prey with pheromones and hunt until the target is dead. There has never been a documented case of one stopping mid-hunt. "Except with humans," David said quietly. Polo pulled up another file. "Correct. 3 recorded encounters in the past century. In each case, the Shade Stalker fled immediately upon detecting human presence. The data is classified, marked as an unexplained anomaly." David leaned forward. "Let me see those reports." The first incident happened 60 years ago on a mining colony. A Shade Stalker had killed 12 colonists before a human maintenance crew arrived. The creature disappeared within hours. The second incident occurred on a research vessel 30 years later. Same pattern. Death stopped the moment humans boarded the ship. The third was just 5 years ago. A Shade Stalker hunting a diplomatic convoy abandoned its prey when human security forces responded. "What did the researchers conclude?" David asked. "Nothing definitive," Polo said. "The leading theory suggests Shade Stalkers might recognize humans as fellow apex predators, but it's just speculation. No one has ever studied the interaction closely. Most people assume it's luck or coincidence. David thought about the cargo bay, the way those yellow eyes had studied him, the pause before it retreated. That was not coincidence. That was recognition. "Tell me about predator behavior on your world," David said. "Do predators fight each other?" Polo's eyes widened slightly. "Only over territory or food. Most predators avoid confrontation with equals. Too much risk of injury. Better to find easier prey." "Same on Earth," David said. "Lions don't hunt leopards. Wolves don't chase bears. Predators respect other predators." He stood and paced the small lab. "The shade stalker looked at me and saw competition, not prey." "That's an interesting theory," Polo admitted. "But how does that help us? The creature is still on the ship. It's still hunting my crewmates." The intercom crackled. Captain Rena's voice filled the lab, tight with panic. "2 more crew members are dead. Dorsal section near the escape pods. The creature is getting bolder." David grabbed the console. "Captain, I need you to evacuate all non-essential crew to the sealed sections. Keep them locked down." "Already in progress," Rena replied. "But Mr. Reed, we cannot hide forever. Food supplies in those sections will last maybe 3 days. What's your plan?" David looked at Polo. An idea was forming. Dangerous, probably insane, but it might work. "I'm going to mark the ship as my territory," David said. "Make the Shade Stalker understand that everyone on board is under my protection." Silence on the intercom, then Rena spoke carefully. "Explain." "Predators are territorial," David said. "The Shade Stalker is hunting because it sees this ship as its hunting ground. I need to change that perception. Make it understand this is my territory, not its." "How?" Polo asked, his voice uncertain. David started gathering supplies from the lab: cloth, containers, anything that could hold scent. The same way any animal marks territory, with biological traces, scent markers. I need to saturate this ship with my presence. Polo looked horrified. "That's remarkably primitive." "That's the point," David said. "Shade stalkers are intelligent, but they operate on instinct, territory, hierarchy, dominance. These are concepts that cross species. I need to speak a language it understands." "This is madness," Rena said through the intercom, but her voice carried a thread of hope. "But we have no better options. You have my authorization. Do what you need to do." David spent the next 4 hours moving through every accessible corridor. He exercised until sweat soaked his jumpsuit. He dragged cloth soaked with his scent across walls and doors. He spoke aloud in empty rooms, his voice echoing through the metal passages. He left handprints on control panels. He made himself impossible to ignore. The ship's AI iris tracked his progress with cold efficiency. "The Shade Stalker is exhibiting unusual behavior," the AI reported. "It is moving in rapid circles. Stress vocalizations detected. Heart rate elevated." "Good," David said, breathing hard from exertion. "It's noticing." He entered the main engineering bay and found the Shade Stalker waiting for him. The creature was coiled in the center of the room, not positioned for ambush, not ready to strike, defensive. Its scales were tight against its body. Those yellow eyes watched David with something that might have been confusion. David stopped at the entrance. He spread his stance slightly, making himself larger, not aggressive but firm. This was his territory now. He had claimed it. The Shade Stalker made a sound, complex, layered, nothing like the simple hiss of a mindless beast. Iris's voice came through his datapad. "Analysis indicates possible communication attempt. Pattern suggests interrogative structure." "It's asking me a question," David said softly. The creature's head lowered slightly. Its body language shifted, still wary but no longer purely defensive. David recognized that posture from his hunting days, a predator reassessing the situation, trying to understand an unexpected variable. David sat down cross-legged on the floor. The move surprised the Shade Stalker. Its head jerked back slightly. David pulled out his datapad and opened his photo library, pictures from Earth. He turned the screen toward the creature. "Look," David said quietly, "this is where I come from." The Shade Stalker moved closer, cautious, its long body sliding across the deck in that unsettling way. David kept talking, showing images: wolves hunting in packs, humans herding sheep, dogs protecting children, lions letting cubs climb on them. "Predators don't just hunt," David explained. "We protect, we guard, we claim things as ours and defend them." The creature's eyes fixed on an image of a shepherd dog standing over a flock of sheep. David watched those yellow eyes narrow with focus. The Shade Stalker made another sound, softer than before. "These sheep are prey," David said, pointing at the image. "But the dog doesn't hunt them. The dog protects them, because they belong to the dog's pack, the dog's territory." He looked up at the Shade Stalker. "The crew of this ship are mine, my territory, not yours to hunt." The creature stared at the image for a long moment. Then it pulled back, its body uncoiling. It moved toward the shadows near the power conduits. Before it disappeared, it looked back at David one more time. Then it was gone. Iris spoke through the datapad. "No hostile action detected. The Shade Stalker has retreated to the unused hydroponics bay. It appears to be establishing a den." David stood slowly, his legs stiff from sitting. 8 hours had passed since the last death, the longest period without violence since the creature came aboard. Polo's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Reed, what did you do?" "I think," David said carefully, "I just negotiated a truce with a monster." The ship felt different now, still dangerous, still tense, but the random killing had stopped. The Shade Stalker remained aboard, but it was no longer hunting. David returned to the science lab, where Polo waited with Captain Rena on the viewscreen. "The creature has stopped killing," Rena said, "but for how long can we trust this piece?" "I don't know," David admitted, "but I think it understands now. This ship has a dominant predator, that's me, and I've claimed the crew as my territory." Polo pulled up biological readings from hidden sensors. "The Shade Stalker's stress hormones are decreasing. It's settling, making a den. This behavior suggests it has accepted the territorial boundaries." Rena's antennae quivered with cautious hope. "So we might survive this." "Maybe," David said, "but I need to maintain the boundary, keep reinforcing the message. I'll patrol the ship twice a day, make sure it knows I'm still here." "And if it decides to challenge you?" Rena asked. David thought about those yellow eyes, the intelligence behind them, the choice the creature had made not to kill him. "Then I'll deal with it," he said, "one predator to another." 30 hours passed without incident. The crew remained in their sealed sections while David maintained his patrols. He walked the corridors morning and evening, speaking aloud, touching surfaces, marking his presence. The Shade Stalker stayed in the hydroponics bay. Iris reported minimal movement from the creature's location. But the piece felt fragile, like glass stretched too thin. Captain Rena contacted the nearest station with a priority message. She explained the situation carefully, knowing how insane it sounded. A human engineer had somehow convinced a Shade Stalker to stop hunting. The response came back skeptical but intrigued. A xenobiology team would arrive in 4 days. Until then, maintain current protocols. David worked in the lower engineering section, repairing systems that had been damaged during the initial attacks. His hands moved automatically while his mind churned through possibilities. What would happen when the xenobiology team arrived? Would the Shade Stalker see them as invaders? Would the fragile understanding collapse? The alarm screamed through his datapad. "Emergency," Iris announced. "Crew member Philo has left the safe zone, currently moving toward escape pod bay 3. The Shade Stalker is in pursuit." David dropped his tools and ran. His boots pounded against metal grating. The corridors blurred past. He pulled up the ship's layout on his datapad while running. Escape pod Bay 3 was in the dorsal section, 2 minutes away at full sprint. Iris updated him constantly. Philo is trapped, dead-end corridor. The Shade Stalker has cornered him. David pushed harder. His lungs burned. The ship's gravity made running exhausting, but he could not slow down. Not now. He rounded the final corner and saw them. Philo was pressed against the far wall of a narrow maintenance corridor. The young Calori's purple skin had gone pale with terror. His forearms were raised defensively, but David knew they would not help. Nothing could stop a Shade Stalker in full hunting mode. The creature filled the corridor, its massive body coiled and ready. Scales flared outward in aggressive display, claws extended, yellow eyes locked on prey. This was not the cautious creature from the engineering bay. This was the predator that had wiped out 47 species. "Stop!" David shouted. The Shade Stalker's head whipped around. Those yellow eyes found David. Recognition flashed across that alien face. The aggressive posture held for a moment. Then uncertainty crept in. David walked forward slowly. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run. He ignored them. He positioned himself directly between the Shade Stalker and Philo. His arms spread wide. His body language clear. "You cannot have this prey." The creature hissed, a sound like steam escaping from pressurized lines. It swayed slightly, head moving side to side, frustrated, confused. David growled deep in his throat. The sound surprised him. He had not meant to make it, but it came from some primal place inside. The part of him that descended from hunters and survivors. The part that knew how to face down predators. The Shade Stalker jerked back slightly. Its scales rippled with agitation. It made a sound David had not heard before. Complex, almost questioning. "No," David said firmly. He pointed at Philo, then at himself, then at the creature. "Mine, not yours, mine." The creature's eyes narrowed. It tilted its head in that distinctive way, studying him, trying to understand why a predator would protect prey. Behind David, Philo whimpered. The sound seemed to trigger something in the Shade Stalker. Its muscles tensed. Claws scraped against the floor. The hunting instinct pushing against whatever hesitation David had created. David did not back down. He took a step forward, one step toward the creature, challenging. This was his territory, his crew, his responsibility. The Shade Stalker made a decision. It sat back on its haunches. The aggressive posture faded, not gone completely but diminished. Those yellow eyes stayed locked on David's face, measuring, calculating. Then it made a short, sharp sound. Iris's translation appeared on David's datapad. Possible acknowledgement detected. The creature turned and flowed back down the corridor. It moved with dignity rather than retreat, like a predator choosing not to waste energy on a contested kill. It disappeared into the ventilation system, leaving David and Philo alone. David's knees almost buckled. Adrenaline drained from his system all at once. He steadied himself against the wall and turned to Philo. "Are you hurt?" Philo shook his head. Words would not come. The young Calori was trembling so hard his teeth chattered. "Come on," David said gently. "Let's get you back to the safe zone." He escorted Philo through the corridors, one hand on the alien's shoulder. By the time they reached the sealed section, Polo was waiting with a medical kit. Captain Rena appeared on a view screen, her face tight with concern. "Is he injured?" Rena asked. "Scared but unhurt," David reported. "The Shade Stalker had him cornered. I intervened." "And it listened to you," Polo said wonderingly. "It actually stopped the hunt." David sat heavily in a chair. His hands shook slightly as adrenaline crash hit him fully. "I don't know how much longer this will work. The creature is frustrated. It understands I'm claiming the crew as my territory, but it doesn't understand why." Polo brought him water. "Because it's a hunter. Hunting is its purpose, its identity. You're asking it to deny its fundamental nature. Then we need to give it a different purpose, David said. Something besides hunting crew members. How do you change the nature of a predator? Rena asked. David thought about Earth, about wolves that became dogs, about cats that moved into human settlements, about predators that found new roles alongside humans. It had happened before. Could it happen again with a species from another world? I need access to the xenobiology research, David said. Everything we know about shade stalker intelligence and social behavior. Polo pulled up files. There's not much. They're solitary hunters usually, but on their home world they form temporary packs for large prey. They have hierarchy, dominant structures. So they understand pack dynamics, David said. They can work with others when needed. In theory, Polo cautioned, but no one has ever tried to domesticate a shade stalker. They're too dangerous, too unpredictable. David stood and walked to the view screen. Captain, I need permission to try something. It's risky, but I think I can teach the creature a new way to hunt. Rena's antennae drooped with stress. What are you proposing? Give me 48 hours, David said. Let me try to redirect its hunting instinct. Show it that there are other things to hunt besides people. And if it doesn't work, Rena asked quietly. Then we're no worse off than we are now, David admitted. But if it does work, we might solve a galaxy-wide problem. Shade stalkers don't have to be extinction-level threats. They could be partners. Polo's eyes widened. You want to train a shade stalker like one of your Earth dogs? Not exactly, David said. I want to show it that hunting can have purpose beyond killing, that its skills have value in ways it hasn't considered. Rena was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. 48 hours, Mr. Reed, but at the first sign of danger, I'm sealing you out of the safe zones. Understood, Captain. David left the safe zone and headed toward the hydroponics bay, where a monster waited in the shadows, a monster he needed to teach a new way to exist. He carried a datapad loaded with files and a container of synthesized protein, offerings, tools, the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen. The hydroponics bay was dark and humid. Plants grew in neat rows under artificial lights. In the far corner, behind a wall of equipment, the shade stalker had made its den. David could see those yellow eyes watching him from the shadows. He sat down cross-legged 15 meters away, non-threatening, patient. He opened the container and the smell of fresh protein filled the air. The shade stalker did not move, but David felt the weight of its attention, the intelligence behind those eyes. Okay, David said quietly. Let's see if we can understand each other. The protein sat untouched for 3 hours. David remained sitting, occasionally checking his datapad but mostly just waiting. The shade stalker watched from its den, unmoving as a statue. Only those yellow eyes showed it was alive, tracking David's smallest movements. Patience was the key. David had learned that hunting wild boar with his father. You did not rush a wild animal. You let it come to you in its own time. Finally, as the 4th hour approached, the creature moved. Slow and cautious, it emerged from behind the equipment. Its serpentine body flowed across the deck with that disturbing grace. It stopped 3 meters from David, close enough to strike, close enough to kill. David did not move. He kept his breathing steady and his eyes forward, not making direct eye contact. Dominance without challenge. The shade stalker extended its neck toward the protein container. Those yellow eyes never left David's face. It sniffed once, twice. Then its long tongue flicked out and pulled a piece of protein into its mouth. It ate slowly, still watching David, testing, waiting for a trap that did not come. Good, David said softly. It's safe. I'm not going to hurt you. The creature consumed the entire container over the next 30 minutes. When it finished, it remained close to David, not touching but no longer keeping maximum distance. A small shift but significant. David pulled out his datapad. Let me show you something. He opened a file showing thermal signatures, heat patterns from various parts of the ship. The Shade Stalker's eyes tracked the moving images. These are people, David explained, highlighting the heat signatures. You've been hunting them, but there are other things to hunt, other challenges that don't involve killing. He switched files, showed a simulation of damaged equipment, hidden system failures, structural weaknesses in the hull that sensors had missed. Finding problems on a ship is hunting, David said. Tracking down failures before they become disasters. Your senses are better than any scanner we have. You can detect things we miss. The creature tilted its head. David could not tell if it understood or simply found the moving images interesting. Over the next 2 days, David spent every available hour with the Shade Stalker. He brought food, showed it schematics, walked it through sections of the ship while explaining systems and functions. The creature followed him like a massive, deadly shadow. Polo monitored their interactions from safe locations. The Shade Stalker's behavior is changing, he reported to Captain Rena. It's responding to David's voice, following commands. This shouldn't be possible. But it is happening, Rena said. Prepare a full report for the xenobiology team. On the 3rd day, David decided to test his theory. He programmed the ship's training simulator to hide a small beacon somewhere in the cargo section. The beacon emitted a specific frequency. David brought the Shade Stalker to the cargo bay entrance. Okay, he said. This is a hunt, but different. I need you to find something for me. Can you do that? He played the beacon's frequency through his datapad. The Shade Stalker's scales rippled. Its whole body language shifted into hunting mode, but controlled, focused. David gestured toward the cargo bay. Find it, bring it back to me. The creature moved into the cargo section with purpose. David watched through cameras as it searched, using senses he could barely comprehend. It checked behind containers, climbed through scaffolding, moved with the same deadly efficiency it had used hunting crew members. 20 minutes later, it returned. The beacon was clutched carefully in its claws. It placed the device at David's feet and looked up expectantly. David felt his throat tighten with emotion. You did it. Good, that's good. He gave the creature more protein as reward. The Shade Stalker consumed it quickly, then made a sound David had started recognizing. Not quite contentment, but close. Satisfaction, maybe. They repeated the exercise 5 more times over the next day. Each time, the Shade Stalker found the beacon faster, more efficiently. It was learning, not just following commands, but understanding the purpose behind them. Captain Rena watched the final test through the monitors. Her antennae quivered with amazement. This changes everything, she whispered. If Shade Stalkers can be trained, if they can work alongside others rather than just hunt them. It's just one creature, Polo cautioned. We don't know if this would work with others of its species. But it's a start, Rena said. A possibility where before there was only death. The xenobiology team arrived on schedule. Dr. Orana, an elderly Menthari with pale blue skin and kind eyes, led the group. She spent hours reviewing Polo's documentation with growing excitement. Remarkable, she kept saying. Absolutely remarkable. No one has ever successfully communicated with a Shade Stalker before, let alone trained one. David met with her in the science lab while the Shade Stalker waited in the hydroponics bay. I didn't train it exactly, he explained. I just showed it a different way to use its skills. Hunting doesn't have to mean killing. Dr. Orana studied him thoughtfully. You understand predators, Mr. Reed, not just intellectually but instinctively. That's rare. I grew up hunting, David said simply. You learn to respect what you hunt. Understand it. The Shade Stalker isn't a monster. It's just a hunter doing what hunters do. We gave it a different target. The galaxy needs to see this, Dr. Orana said. For too long, Shade Stalkers have been extinction-level threats, but if they can be partners, allies, imagine the possibilities. But complications arrived with the research team. The shipping company that owned the Bright Horizon sent new orders. Eliminate the Shade Stalker or abandon the ship. Insurance refused to cover the vessel with an apex predator aboard. Captain Rena called a meeting with David and Dr. Orana present through viewscreen. I've argued with them for hours, she said, her voice heavy with frustration. They won't budge. Either the creature dies or we lose the ship. That's unacceptable, Dr. Orana said firmly. This creature has committed no violence in days. It's learning, growing. We can't just kill it for insurance purposes. David sat quietly thinking. The Shade Stalker had stopped being a threat, but fear still controlled the decision-makers. Fear of what it was, not what it had become. What if we relocate it? David suggested. Take it somewhere it can continue learning without threatening anyone. Dr. Orana brightened. I have emergency research funding. We could establish a facility, study the integration process properly, learn how to replicate this with other Shade Stalkers. And the creature would be safe, David asked. Safe and valued, Dr. Orana promised. This discovery could save countless lives, both Shade Stalker lives and the lives of species they would otherwise hunt. Rena considered this. When would the transfer happen? Tomorrow, Dr. Orana said. We have a research vessel equipped for large predators. Mr. Reed, would you be willing to help with the transition? The creature trusts you. The transfer would be smoother with you present. David looked at the monitor showing the hydroponics bay. The Shade Stalker rested peacefully in its den, no longer the mindless killer that had boarded this ship. It had changed, learned, become something new. I'll help, David said, but after that I need to get back to work. I'm just an engineer. Dr. Orana smiled. Mr. Reed, you're far more than that. You might have just changed the fate of an entire species. The next day brought preparation for the transfer. David spent his final hours with the Shade Stalker, making sure it understood what was happening. Change was coming, but not danger, just a new place, new challenges, new hunts that did not involve death. The transfer pod arrived attached to Dr. Orana's research vessel. Specialized containment designed for apex predators but comfortable, not cruel. Climate controlled. Space to move. Transparent walls so the creature would not feel trapped in darkness. David walked the Shade Stalker through the docking corridor. The creature stayed close to his side, its massive body flowing with that serpentine grace. Crew members watched through reinforced windows, still fearful despite days without violence. Fear did not disappear easily. Almost there, David said quietly. New place, safe place. The Shade Stalker made a low sound, not distressed but uncertain. Change made all creatures nervous, even apex predators. They reached the transfer pod. David entered first, showing the creature it was safe. The interior was larger than expected. Soft flooring, temperature comfortable, feeding stations built into the walls. Dr. Orana had prepared well. The Shade Stalker hesitated at the entrance. Those yellow eyes studied the space carefully, looking for threats, for traps, its instincts warning against enclosed spaces. David sat down in the center of the pod. It's okay. I'll stay with you until we reach the facility. The creature's eyes fixed on him. Trust had been built over days, carefully, patiently. Now that trust was tested. The Shade Stalker entered the pod. It coiled near David, scales relaxed, not aggressive, simply present. David placed his hand on the creature's flank. The scales were cool and smooth. He could feel the powerful muscles beneath. This being could kill him in seconds if it chose, but it did not choose violence. Not anymore. The pod sealed. The research vessel detached from the bright horizon. Through the transparent walls, David watched Captain Rena and her crew gather at the observation windows. They looked relieved, grateful, alive because he had stood between them and death. Rena's voice came through the pod's communication system. "Mr. Reed, I don't have adequate words. You saved us. More than that, you showed us something impossible." "Just doing what needed to be done, Captain," David replied. "No," Rena said firmly. "You did far more. You proved that understanding is possible even with the galaxy's most feared predators. Safe journey, my friend." The research vessel accelerated away. The bright horizon grew smaller through the viewing ports. That chapter was closing. Dr. Orana appeared on the pod's internal screen. "The journey will take 6 hours. The facility is ready for our guest. How is it handling the transition?" David looked at the Shade Stalker. The creature had its head resting on coiled body segments, calm, watchful but not stressed. "Better than expected," David said. "I think it understands this is temporary, that we're going somewhere specific." "Remarkable," Dr. Orana said. "Every moment with this creature reveals new layers of intelligence. Rest if you can, Mr. Reed. The real work begins when we arrive." David did rest eventually. The Shade Stalker's breathing became slow and rhythmic. It slept. David dozed against its side, his engineer's jumpsuit providing minimal comfort, but he had slept in worse places. He woke to the research vessel docking. The facility was built into an asteroid in neutral space, protected, isolated, perfect for studying creatures too dangerous for populated areas. Dr. Orana met them at the docking port. Her team stood at a respectful distance, scientific curiosity fighting with primal fear. The Shade Stalker was the first of its kind to be brought here alive and cooperative. "Welcome," Dr. Orana said. "Your new home is prepared." She led them through corridors wider than standard ships, everything built to accommodate large creatures. The facility hummed with the sounds of life support and research equipment. They reached a habitat section designed specifically for the Shade Stalker. Massive space, multiple levels, climbing structures, areas for denning, temperature and humidity controls. It was a palace compared to the hydroponics bay. "This is temporary," Dr. Orana explained. "Eventually we hope to establish a larger facility, but for now this will serve." The Shade Stalker entered the habitat cautiously. It explored every corner, every level, claiming the space as its own. David watched with satisfaction. The creature would be comfortable here. Over the following days, Dr. Orana's team documented everything. They measured the Shade Stalker's responses, tested its problem-solving abilities, created increasingly complex search challenges. The creature exceeded every expectation. "Intelligence level is extraordinary," Dr. Orana told David during a research review. "Higher than we suspected. It's not just following commands, it's anticipating needs, planning approaches. This is sophisticated cognitive function." David had known that already. You could see it in those yellow eyes, the way the creature observed and learned. It was not a mindless beast, never had been, just a predator without purpose beyond hunting. "What's next?" David asked. "We've received authorization to attempt integration with other Shade Stalkers," Dr. Orana said excitedly. "Based on your success, we're planning to carefully introduce humans to 7 more individuals currently in containment across the galaxy. If even half respond as well as this one, we could revolutionize interspecies cooperation." "And if they don't respond well?" David asked. Dr. Orana's expression sobered. "Then we learn from the failures and refine our approach. Science is not always immediate success, but your work has given us a foundation, a proof of concept." On his final day at the facility, David spent hours with the Shade Stalker. The creature had adapted well. It participated in search exercises with enthusiasm. It had even accepted food from other handlers, though it clearly preferred David. "I have to go," David told the creature. "Back to work, back to fixing ships and cooling systems." The Shade Stalker tilted its head in that familiar way. Understanding flickered across its alien features. "But you'll be okay," David continued. "Dr. Orana and her team will take care of you, give you challenges, purpose. You're going to help save your whole species. That's important work." He placed his hand on the creature's head. The scales were warm now, temperature adjusted for comfort. The Shade Stalker leaned into the touch slightly. "You're a good hunter," David said quietly. "You just needed better things to hunt." Dr. Orana called him to the docking bay. A transport waited to take him back to the nearest station where he could find new engineering work. His contract with the Bright Horizon had ended. Time to move forward. At the docking port, Dr. Orana handed him a data chip. "Full research access," she said. "You're listed as primary consultant on the Shade Stalker integration project. We'll keep you updated on progress." "I'd appreciate that," David said. "Also," Dr. Orana added with a slight smile, "we've had 7 requests from security firms asking if you'd be interested in training other handlers. It seems word has spread about the human who tamed a Shade Stalker." "I didn't tame it," David corrected. "I just talked to it, listened, respected what it was." "That's what makes you valuable," Dr. Orana said. "You see the being, not just the threat. The galaxy needs more people like you, Mr. Reed." David boarded the transport. Through the viewing port he could see the facility where the Shade Stalker waited, starting a new life, a new purpose. The transport jumped to hyperspace. The facility vanished from view. 6 months passed like water through filters. David took contracts on 3 different ships, fixed cooling systems, repaired engines, did the quiet work that kept vessels running. He did not talk about the Shade Stalker unless people asked. Some had heard rumors. Others thought it was impossible. David did not care what they believed. Dr. Orana sent updates monthly. The integration project exceeded all projections. 7 more Shade Stalkers had been paired with human handlers. 6 partnerships succeeded. 1 failed, but the creature was safely relocated to a preserved world. No deaths, no disasters. The successful pairs had started working. 2 Shade Stalkers helped search and rescue teams find survivors in collapsed mining tunnels. Their senses detected life signs buried under meters of rock. 3 joined security details protecting diplomatic stations. Their presence alone deterred attacks. 1 worked with engineers detecting hull breaches and system failures before sensors registered problems. The galaxy was learning. Shade Stalkers were not extinction threats if given purpose beyond hunting. They were intelligent, capable, valuable allies. Then David received a different message. Personal request from Dr. Orana. Could he return to the facility? Important development, his expertise needed. David finished his current contract and took transport back to the asteroid facility. It had grown since his last visit. New habitat sections, more research staff. The project had become a priority for multiple galactic organizations. Dr. Orana met him at the docking port. She looked tired but excited. "Thank you for coming. We have a situation that requires your specific experience." She led him to a new section of the facility. Behind reinforced observation glass waited a young Shade Stalker, smaller than the one David had worked with, maybe 4 meters long instead of 6. Its scales were darker, almost pure black without the rainbow sheen. "This is designation SS-247, Dr. Orana explained. "We recovered it from a damaged freighter 3 weeks ago. Young, confused, aggressive. None of our handlers have been able to establish communication." David watched the creature pace behind the glass, agitated movements, scales flared defensively, yellow eyes scanning constantly for threats. "Why me?" David asked. "Your team has successfully paired 6 creatures already." "Because you were the first," Dr. Orana said. "You developed the baseline methodology, and because this one is different. It was found near a human colony that was attacked. We think it associates humans with danger. It needs someone who can overcome that fear. David studied the young shade stalker. It noticed him watching and hissed, pressing against the far wall, defensive, scared despite its predatory nature. What happened to its parent? David asked. Killed defending its nest, Dr. Orana said quietly. Colonists thought they were under attack. They weren't. The adult shade stalker was protecting eggs. By the time anyone realized the mistake, both adults were dead. This was the only surviving offspring. David felt something twist in his chest. It's an orphan. Yes, traumatized. We've provided food and shelter, but it won't engage, won't respond to training protocols. We're running out of options. What happens if it doesn't adapt? David asked, though he already knew the answer. Relocation to a preserved world, Dr. Orana said. Isolated existence. No purpose. No pack. It would survive but not truly live. David made his decision. I'll try, but I'll need time, no rushing, no forced interactions. Whatever you need, Dr. Orana agreed. David started slowly. He sat outside the habitat for hours each day, not trying to interact, just being present. The young shade stalker watched him with suspicious yellow eyes. Sometimes it hissed. Sometimes it ignored him. David remained patient. After 3 days, he entered the habitat. The creature retreated immediately, scales flared in threat display. David sat down 10 meters away and pulled out a ration bar. He ate slowly, pretending the shade stalker did not exist. The creature watched, confused by this human who did not attack, did not threaten, just sat and ate and occasionally spoke in quiet tones. I know you're scared, David said without looking directly at the creature. I know humans hurt you, took your family. That's a terrible thing. I'm sorry it happened. The shade stalker made a low sound, pain mixed with warning. But not all humans are the same, David continued. Just like not all shade stalkers are the same. Some of us want to help, want to understand, want to give you a better life than hiding alone. Days passed. David maintained his routine, sitting, talking, leaving food. The young shade stalker slowly relaxed. Its scales stopped flaring constantly. It began eating the food David left. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. On the 10th day, David brought a different offering. A small electronic puzzle box. Simple mechanism. Press the right sequence and it opened to reveal food inside. He demonstrated once, pressed the buttons, retrieved the food, then reset the box and slid it toward the center of the habitat. The shade stalker approached cautiously. It sniffed the box, tapped it with one claw. Nothing happened. It looked at David questioningly. You have to solve it, David said. Figure out the pattern, that's the hunt. The creature studied the box with intense focus. Its claw touched buttons randomly at first, then more deliberately, testing, learning. After 20 minutes, it pressed the correct sequence. The box opened. The shade stalker made a sound of surprise and satisfaction. David smiled. Good, that's good, try again. He reset the box with a different pattern. The young shade stalker solved it faster this time, understanding the concept, not just pushing buttons but hunting for the solution. Over the following weeks, the puzzles became more complex. Thermal patterns to track, hidden objects to find, structural problems to detect. The young shade stalker excelled at each challenge. Its trauma began fading, replaced by curiosity and purpose. One morning, David entered the habitat and the creature approached him directly. No hesitation, no fear. It pressed its head against David's hand, seeking contact, offering trust. You're going to be okay, David whispered. You're going to have a good life. Dr. Orana reviewed the progress with barely contained excitement. This is remarkable. SS-247 has completely turned around. It's engaging with other handlers, participating in group exercises. You've done it again. The creature did it, David corrected. I just gave it a reason to try. False modesty doesn't suit you, Dr. Orana said with a smile. You have a gift, Mr. Reed, the ability to communicate across species barriers, to see potential where others see only danger. She pulled up a new contract on her datapad. I have a proposal. Stop taking random engineering jobs. Work with us full-time. Lead the handler training program. Help us build partnerships with more shade stalkers. You could change the galaxy. David looked at the young shade stalker through the observation window. It was playing with a puzzle box, yellow eyes bright with intelligence. No longer a traumatized orphan, but a being with purpose and future. I'm just an engineer, David said. You're more than that and you know it, Dr. Orana replied. You're a bridge between species, between fear and understanding. We need you. David thought about the past 6 months, the ships he had fixed, the quiet satisfaction of repair work, but also the updates from Dr. Orana, the shade stalkers finding purpose, finding partnership with humans, making the galaxy safer for everyone. Maybe fixing ships was not the only way to make things better. Okay, David said, I'll do it, but on one condition. Name it. SS-247 is mine to train. I want to see this through personally. Dr. Orana extended her hand. Deal. Welcome to the team, Mr. Reed. David shook her hand and looked back at the young shade stalker. It had stopped playing and was watching him through the glass. Those yellow eyes held recognition now, understanding, trust. They hunted all targets except humans, not because humans were stronger, not because humans were more dangerous, but because humans had shown them a different path, a better hunt, a purpose beyond killing. David entered the habitat. The shade stalker approached and pressed its head against his palm. Together, they would teach the galaxy that even the fiercest predators could become the greatest protectors. That understanding was stronger than fear. That partnership was possible when you took the time to listen. The future spread before them like an uncharted star field, full of challenges, full of possibility, and they would face it together. Human and hunter, teacher and student, friends across the vast divide of species and instinct. The hunt had changed, and so had the hunters.